17 August 2022, Saquarema City, Rio de Janeiro, Unity National State, Brazil. We will have the second part of our conversation as a contribution and serving the antitrust justice as a stakeholder because I believe in what they do, and by equity we can observe that this can be applied in the success of our species as mankind. So we will check that the first part of our conversation we could understand patterns. And it's like this. We observe that the relation of microeconomy as supply and demand forming the markets. The markets integrated give me the portfolio as a structure presented by my national space, and this is a conjuncture as economic macroeconomic argument. This notation belongs to our global scenario, but if I have failures at the global scenario observed as pandemic event, the regression will lead to microeconomy on failures and demand and supply that integrated failored markets, and indeed we have logical gaps on investment saving curve and liquidity money curve affecting the balance of payment as my conjuncture that has gaps, and the replacement of gaps as conjunctural gaps considering the investment saving curve will lead to the exchanged market, and the variance of scams on liquidity money curves leads to the laundry scams. The permutative argument between the items, services, and things that go quantified by money as investment saving curve presented equally at the liquidity money curve from macro to micro will lead to scams at the supply and demand on microeconomy in the same way, and one more time impacting the market. The factorial behavior as variance considering the stochastic process as having the failures as gaps will by obvious be in some area or some bank or something that is taking advantage of the regular area and the regular conjuncture that got failure and combined. And if it's combined by failure the global economy, and then mankind is trending by the orientation which is the will and the destiny of mankind based on corruption. Proved by this crude model, we can observe that this goes equally as a pattern which is named Fibonacci. This kind of organization and mobilization names the internal dot product. Obviously, will be observed in a relation between Republican and the Democratic, that is the state power as government, which has on it the ambition to be explicitly declared as the owner of this state power during one specific period. The difference between the state power as government and the judicial power as institutional power is that the range of access that belongs by legitimacy as government is much more amplified than the state power as judicial power. But in some cases, in some areas, we have activism and the extension and supremacy of this institution as judicial power. But if this goes, it's a hoax because the legitimacy as state power belongs to the proper application of the law. And if you abandon the proper application of the law and your own constitution, the reason as existence, which implies the state power as mission, do not exist, and you do this to achieve power and impacting crossing the lines as legitimacy of government, and you insist and do this in other areas, you are in a deep shit. Then we'll check that this model was observed The failure we will get from conjunctures 1 up to 197, the combination of them all will be here. At this space, consider sectors at the market on macroeconomy and the sectorial operations on microeconomy. We will work this area here now. Quite simple, quite clear. We will work with two concepts. The first three concepts that we had was the Pareto conditions, that you must talk about things and put things talked as organized and structured down to save yourself, like save your soul. Then we will check the second concept as a Gini coefficient, which is the inequality things. And if we are working by equity, the inequality is against the work we do. The equity jurisdiction, as John Rawls needs to understand at first, which is the inequality. The inequality application of the law is when your judicial power do not apply the law, crossing the line of other state power and institutional power to get and obtain the supremacy as institution. Carrying this, they know all things about all issues by the supremacy they have. And if they do not have the cooperation and the contribution after got the conjunctural failure, they must assume the responsibility. It's a binomial thing, and we will have this concept now. In, in Brazil, it's named produtos notáveis. We will check that inside that interval as the density of something that leads to our global system from one regular area that got corrupted, and the movement as corruption can be at this field as density, we will observe that goes as association. Let's speak only this very first nation here, which is the Brazil segmented by budget, putting you all inside this interval and use our model as astrophysics model, which indeed we have now the existence of failure, which has a density for decreasement of capacity. This is the first thing we have. Then we'll check that the operation, as we could observe on the previous board, goes like this. If I have the national state 1 and possibility as combination 1 up to Z as economic sectors and activities, I will check that the first movement that I will have is 1A. And let's suppose that in the next moment, considering the machine reading, I will have the combination with other area by the stochastic process, which implies the failures on it that never had complained before. And it means that we will have maybe the duplicity of counting, fusing things, and have the confusion in the moment that you must have the transparency and the accountability. And if you designated a CAO or whatever to do this, he will or her will have problems. But the logical gap storage, and this failure will be got by the person that is receiving this information by something intentional, but sometimes it's not intentional. The first cycle as repeating, and this movement it's on mathematics named repeating decimal. We will check that we will have the second moment 1A, A, B. And this will go 1A, A, B, B, C. Can you observe that we are forming periods related with the main driver in a very specific moment? And this main driver B belongs as the top cat at the market considering the Porter model as 5 force, we will observe that the market has the leaders and that one that follows the leader. It's the driver. The first C here. And everybody indeed is related with my conjuncture number 1. My conjuncture number 1 has an instrument of control named budget. And by this budget, considering that the supply and demand during the period as cover anything especially as lockdown and isolation, the market was kind of and fed by the supply and demand that is fed by tax stimulus. The failures on market indeed will be related with supply and demand that's related with the tax stimulus. But who makes the tax police on economy? Is the same person that do the liquidity money, the monetary police on economy as institution? This question is for you. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Interpol, ACD, and peers. Now we will observe that this relation between my conjuncture and my driver at the economy is something named polynomial. It's in português. In Brazil, it's named produtos notáveis. The distribution as polynomial distribution inside this interval, as you could observe, will be like this: 1, 1A, 1A, A, B, 1A, A, B, B, 1A, A, B, 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 C. Is this a pyramid? Investment safe, liquidity money. What do you think? Now we put this here and consider, is this negative one? Is corruption a crime? Is your problem solved, segmented, depurated, regression made? Your silence can be a crime. Have a good night. Now I will finally have my gym time.